Okay, so a very good afternoon to one and all present here, and I am Soumi Acharya from MedPiper, and I welcome every one of you present here today, including our respected speaker, Dr. Mohan Siri, who has gracefully agreed to lead this webinar on anti-cancer drug discovery for future. So, in order to set some context to the webinar, I'll start off by introducing you to MedPiper Technologies, highlight our objectives, and briefly explain the flow of events. Some of you present here might be aware of MedPiper and Journomed and the work we do, but to those who are new, Journomed is a healthcare provider focused digital publisher. So we believe in well-informed healthcare providers deliver better patient outcomes. So through partnerships with over 30 leading medical industry companies and various medical associations, we curate and disseminate the stories and research that matter most to our nearly 65,000 verified recipients such as physicians, dentists, nurses, and other healthcare professionals. MedPiper is a health tech company that uses technology to connect doctors and healthcare professionals with hospitals and healthcare organizations for duty vacancies, clinical assignments, and partnerships. Our platform helps doctors with resources to enhance their professional skills as well as network with fellow peers in the medical field. Our objective is to unify healthcare data and minimize information asymmetry in healthcare, especially among the practitioners. To achieve this target, MedPiper is building a professional network for pre-verified and peer-authenticated professionals and practitioners. On the platform, we use knowledge maps, AI, and blockchain technology to enable the verification of profile credentials by peers, educators, employers, and match those profiles to job requirements. In addition to this, MedPiper's service includes providing a one-stop go-to API solution for rapidly scaling digital health companies. We are currently working with Tata Health, Seven Sugars, Apollo 24/7, DocSep, to name a few of them. In addition to real-time provider data verification and network monitoring, MedPiper's expanded platform offers end-to-end solution to healthcare organizations. With that, I would like to take this opportunity to thank our speaker. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today for this session. And just before I hand the session over to you, I would like my colleague, Ms. Parvati, to introduce our speaker to the audience.
Hi, I'm Parvati. I work as a writer for Journomed, and it gives me great honor and pleasure to introduce our speaker today. Dr. C.D. Mohan has published over 60 research papers in international peer-reviewed journals, such as Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, Journal of Biological Chemistry, iScience, Scientific Reports, etc. And he has around 5 patents in the area of cell biology. He has co-authored one book chapter and was a co-investigator for international collaborative research projects. He has the scientific citations of more than 1,050, index of around 20, and delivered more than 15 invited talks in national and international conferences. He is the editor for PLOS ONE and DMC Complementary and Alternative Medicine and a reviewer for over 12 journals. He has been awarded with NACI Young Scientist Platinum Jubilee Award by the National Academy of Sciences India in 2019 and Professor Umakant Sinha Memorial Award by the Indian Science Congress Association, Kolkata in 2020. He is also serving as a visiting scientist in R.D. Chunchanagiri Institute for Molecular Medicine, Mandya. Dr. Mohan was also a part of Professor Rangapa's team, who worked along with Hyderabad-based Lorvin Biologics Private Limited, and they developed the COVID-19 self-testing kit that is said to detect the virus in 10 minutes. Currently, it's under review with ICMR. So with so much credentials under him, and I'm pretty sure that this webinar would be really enriching and it would provide a lot of information in this field of cancer, because that's what he's mainly been doing. And with that, Professor Mohan, this is can go on.
So thank you very much, Parvati and others for such an elaborative introduction about myself and to about your company as well. So indeed, it is a honor to me to be a part of this webinar and present, my work in front of you guys. Basically, my area of research is cancer biology. I have been, working with cancer biology since 2011. So it's been almost a decade. And we have published a lot of good papers, and we have invented, we have, discovered several biologically active molecules that are of high therapeutic importance. So in today's seminar also, I would like to present one of the projects that focus on the discovery of drugs towards cancer. Though we work at the level of laboratory, these needs to be taken or upscaled with a farm with produce drug seeds. Whether whatever the research that we are doing will be taken further or not, it is decided by pharmaceutical companies. After I explain you what are our goals of the aim of the research, probably you will be able to appreciate the kind of work that we are doing. So before that, I would like to share the screen to start before starting my presentation. So I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, doctor.
So today, I am presenting the work related to the anti-cancer drug discovery for the future. So if you look at this slide, I am posing a problem which is threatening the society or threatening the globe, which is nothing but a disease called as cancer. To make few words about the disease cancer, cancer is characterized by abnormal proliferation of cells in one's body. It is like the organisms are made up of trillions of cells. Among those cells, some cells begins to proliferate enormously without under the control of the regulatory system. Then we call that mass of cells are cancer cells. Here, if you can look at the data that I'm presenting here, approximately 8.2 million deaths takes place every year, and throughout the globe. Therefore, this is a very alarming number. You can see that in the statistics given, males and females are equally susceptible for cancer. It is not either sex dependent or it is not partial towards any of the sex. So both the sexes are equally prone to this. But the organs that are affected may vary. It is in case of the lung cancer, it remains as the leading type of cancer in case of both the sexes, followed by prostate in men and breast in the female, and the list continues. So what we understand from these data is every possible organ can be affected with cancer. So majorly lung is the most susceptible organ. Then why do we get affected with cancer so easily? This is one of the leading killers among the non-communicable diseases. Why it is so? Why this disease has taken such a leading role? This is all because of our lifestyle. This is the world statistics. When it comes to India, again, we have different types of the cancers, and you can see the statistics there also. Breast cancer remains the first type of cancer in case of in India, followed by the cancers of the head and neck cancers, cervical cancer, lung cancer, stomach, and other cancers comprises of 56%. So the reason for the cancer is our lifestyle. The first thing that I would like to tell you is, I am going to talk to you about risk factors in the next slide. So these are the risk factors that are, I'm going to focus on. Exposure to carcinogens. exposure to carcinogens, the question that comes is, do we really get exposed to carcinogens in our daily life? Yes or no? Here, the answer is obviously yes. I will tell you a very simple example which we understood in our laboratory conditions. We tested some of the food adulterants in our department in the laboratory of Professor Gopal Marathe sir. We got to know that the green peas that were obtained from the local market were coated with a chemical called as malachite green. Malachite green makes the peas to appear green. That's all. No other role. But malachite green is a potential chemical carcinogen. So in order to make the peas appear green, the people are selling the food product with a potential carcinogen. Therefore, from this we understand that whenever the vendor sells it to a roadside chaat shops, obviously these chaat shops buy any ingredients from the local shops, and they are selling the food contaminated with this kind of chemicals. So therefore, malachite green is a potential carcinogen. The next one is, you must be aware that whenever you go for any tea shops or coffee shops, they serve the coffee or tea with the plastic cups. These plastic cups purely, they have a chemical called as melamine. Melamine is a kidney carcinogen, or it is also responsible for the kidney failure. That's why we see the enormous amount of the kidney failure patients nowadays. So this is what about the exposure of the carcinogen. See, I just took only 2 examples, but there are, I can give you hundreds of examples related to this. We are getting exposed to carcinogens very regularly. The next one is radiations. Do we really get exposed to radiations? Yes. Here, the first thing is, whenever there is some medical emergency, we generally go for the CT scan if there is any organ damage to study about these things. In the COVID days, it was too high. Whether these CT scans are good or bad, here we have beneficial effects as well as the harmful effects. Coming to the beneficial effects, CT scan can detect even the minor changes in your organ, but the harmful effect is one CT scan is equal to more than 200 chest X-rays. That means if you get exposed to such a high radiations, in a short period of time, so there are chances that it may lead to cancer. And one more thing is, one more data is, approximately 15,000 Americans die every year due to the cancer that has arisen from getting CT scanned. So CT scan is the root cause for the 15,000 Americans to die out of cancer. So it's not just a CT scan. It could be exposure to radon. Radon is the radioactive gas which is present everywhere. If you are even in the sitting in the closet room, you are getting exposed to radon gas. So like this, radiations are everywhere. So we never know when we can get exposed to higher concentration of radiations, and where do we get it. The next one is bacterial and viral infections. Coming to the bacteria, we are familiar with a bacteria called as Helicobacter pylori. Helicobacter pylori is a bacteria that causes the stomach infections. Generally, it causes the infection. It resides in the gastrointestinal tract. So when this infection takes place, generally, eventually, this leads to the gastric cancers. But fortunately, thanks to our forefathers, it is that because of the spices that we eat, we usually don't get infected with the Helicobacter pylori so easily. But the Westerns are susceptible for this infection. Then coming to virus, the virus such as HBV, that is hepatitis B or hepatitis C viruses, are very dangerous because they are DNA viruses. They are going to leave their DNA post after the infection. Also, this DNA get into the liver cells, and that DNA becomes circularly closed. It retains the circular form and it resides in the host cell for longer time. This leads to liver cancer. Therefore, it is very important to know that bacterial and viral infections should be cured as early as possible. Then smoking, the next risk factor is, if you have a smoker friend, the smoker, once he releases the smoke, he is literally releasing 66 known mutagens. It is about, if you have a smoker friend, you are inhaling 66 mutagen together. So it is that's why in the public places, the smoking is not allowed. So 66 mutagens, unless he is consuming 66 mutagen and is releasing it to the environment. Therefore, we inhale the 66 mutagens and we have the chances of developing the lung cancer. In the same way, we have other various risk factors associated with specific cancers, and some of them I've given in this slide. Then, to tell you some basics of cancer, cancer can be of two types. One is benign type of cancer, the other one is malignant type of cancer. Benign means this cancer cannot spread to the different parts of the body, but malignant cancers are, once if they are not treated in the early stages, they begin to proliferate in the primary site. Primary site you can see in these pictures. If a liver is affected with cancer, then slowly liver is called as the primary site, and slowly these cancer cells migrate from liver to lungs. So lung is the secondary site. So movement of these cancer cells from one place to the other, we call the process as metastasis. And metastasis can take place if the cancer is malignant type of cancer. So malignant type of cancer is more lethal. Benign types are not generally. They can be cured, or they can be cured by operation or surgical procedures. So these are the properties of the cancer cells. They are immortal. Immortal means they never die. It is like, I can tell you incidents where in 1951, up to 1950, people were trying to grow the cancer cells in the laboratory. But most of the efforts or attempts were failure. But in the 1951, one of the guy, one of the female named as Henrietta Lacks, approached a doctor with the complaint stating that she has a abdominal pain. And when she was, clinically investigated, the doctor found out that she is suffering from cervical cancer. So he takes some of her cervical cancer cells and put it in a media that he prepared. And fortunately, those cells begins to grow in his laboratory. This is the first ever breakthrough in the cancer biology, where the cancer cells were grown in the laboratory. This happened in 1951, and the name of the lady is Henrietta Lacks. Now, the cells that are obtained from Henrietta Lacks were named as HeLa. He from Henrietta, LF is taken from Lacks. So those cells were named as HeLa. They were isolated in 1952. You can find them again still in my laboratory. That means those cells were distributed throughout the globe, and all the research, cancer research scientists are using the HeLa cells. Why I'm telling you this point is, this title of the slide says, these cells cancer cells are immortal. Though the Henrietta Lacks in the year 1954, her cells are still alive in the laboratories of the cancer biologists. So that you can imagine how vigorously they grow and how resistant they are to the cell death. So some of the the properties of the cancer cells are given. They continuously give proliferative signals, and they have an enormous replicative potential. That's why it is not easy for them to be killed. So no contact inhibition. Generally, surrounding cells control the growth of the cells. But in this case, they are work by contact inhibition, independent inhibition. So growth suppressor also cannot suppress the growth of the cancer cells. As I said, they have the invasive and metastatic potential. Invasive metastatic potential means they can move from one part of the body to the other part, and the tumor or the cancer can spread easily. Then in this slide, you can see that how to treat the cancer in the present day scenario. There are 5 strategies used for the treatment of the cancer. One is surgery. The next one is radiotherapy. Oldest one is surgery. The next comes the radiotherapy. Then is the chemotherapy, then molecular targeted therapy and immunotherapy. Among these therapies, we work on cytotoxic chemotherapy, that is development of the chemotherapeutic molecules, then molecular targeted therapy. We work on these 2 aspects. Coming to the chemotherapeutics, in this talk, I'll just concentrate on the chemotherapeutics. Chemotherapeutics means you are injecting a chemical to a cancer patient, and that chemical searches for the cancer cells and kills them. So basically, this is the idea behind chemotherapy. These chemical compounds, either we can use it from the chemical compounds derived from the mother nature, or from the synthetic origin, that is the the molecules that are generated in our laboratory conditions. So I have given some of the examples also here. So Taxol, zinc alkaloids, camptothecin, doxorubicin, all these things are derived from either plants, bacteria, or fungus. And these are the bioactive molecules and blockbuster drugs available in the market today. The other drugs are gemcitabine, sorafenib, gefitinib, methotrexate. These are the chemically synthesized laboratory drugs, and they are also working well and present in the present day market. These are the drugs that are prescribed to the cancer patients. So basically, we work both. To isolate the drugs from the natural sources, also from the synthesis of the drugs in the laboratory conditions. So I take up a project entitled azaspirine targets STAT3 pathway in hepatocellular carcinoma. So azaspirine is the chemical compound that we synthesized in our laboratory, and it worked efficiently towards hepatocellular carcinoma. So let me give you some basics about this project, then get into the data, actual data. See, when we were interested to know a simple molecule that can inhibit the proliferation of the cells, we were doing literature survey, and we got to know that there is an interesting molecule called as etiprimode. Etiprimode is basically a azaspirine. Azaspirine means spirine. Let me tell you the meaning of spirine first. Here, there are 2 rings. One is hexane ring, the other one is pentane ring. Hexane and pentane are connected by a single carbon atom. If one atom is involved in the fusion of 2 rings, we call it as spirane. It looks like a spirane, so we call it as spirane. Since nitrogen is involved here, it is called as azaspirine. Now, this is the simplest molecule. This is developed by a company, in fact, and they have patented this molecule towards the inhibition of the JAK2, a protein called as JAK2. Let me explain you about JAK2 in the subsequent slides. So basically, what we understood by studying this patent is etiprimode targets JAK2 in multiple myeloma. It is a type of the blood cancer, I can say in a very vague words. So etiprimode, it is in the phase 2 clinical trials. It is not yet entered the clinics. So we studied this US patent, and we thought if we can make some modification which is not covered in the patent, then we can go for a good molecule against some of the JAK2 activated cancers. So what we did is we rationally designed a molecule. You can see here, there is etiprimode, this is our scaffold. This is also azaspirine, and this is also azaspirine. The only difference is it is the fusion of 6-membered and 5-membered rings, but it is the fusion of both 6-membered rings. Of course, it also has nitrogen in it. So this molecule was not covered in the United States patent, which was available previously. So this is where the trick lies. So since this molecule was not patented, we decided to synthesize this molecule, because we also should know that it is not easy to synthesize a chemical compound which has a very difficult or a very complicated structure. So we wanted to synthesize a molecule which is relatively simpler. So what we did is we choose this scaffold, which is looks very similar to the atiprimode, and later we tested against several cancer cell lines. I will continue with the story a little later about that story. First, let me explain you what is this JAK2. If you can understand JAK2 and the other signaling mechanisms, you will be able to appreciate our work. Here, normally, in case of the normal cells, so let's assume this is the normal cell. So it has a biological membrane, and the biological membrane has a receptor. This receptor, when it is bound by a particular cytokine, JAK2 proteins, JAK proteins which are present in the cytosol get activated. That means they undergo phosphorylation. Once the JAK undergo phosphorylation, there is another protein called as STAT protein. STAT is a transcription factor. Transcription factor means these proteins bind to DNA to induce the expression of the genes. Now, you can see that binding of the cytokine activates the STAT. Activation of STAT means it undergo phosphorylation. Once the STAT undergo phosphorylation, it undergo dimerization. Two STATs attach together. Once the STATs are dimerized, they subsequently shift into nucleus and they bind to the genomic DNA. When they bind to the genomic DNA, some genes are expressed. These genes give rise to, STAT targeted genes generally have various functions. So I said JAK. Among the JAK, there are 4 types of JAK proteins: JAK1, JAK2, JAK3, and tyrosine kinase 2. Then I said also STAT. STAT is a transcription factor. In the STAT also, there are 7 variants named as STAT1, STAT2, STAT3, STAT4, STAT5A, and STAT5B. 5B and STAT6. So transcription of these genes are targeted by the STAT proteins. Next, so as we learned, there are variants of STATs. We also got to know that when we studied the different types of cancers, we also got to note that STAT3, protein STAT3 is overactivated in most of the types of cancers. You can see that in this table, STAT3 is overactivated. That means STAT3 is giving signal to the particular cell to proliferate more. Therefore, if we can target STAT3, here you can see this in this picture. So binding of the interleukin-6 to its receptors activates JAK2, where JAK2 phosphorylates STAT3 to undergo dimerization. If we can stop this process, that is dimerization of the STAT3, that means by inhibiting the phosphorylation of STAT3, then this STAT3 dimer cannot enter the nucleus. If STAT3 cannot enter the nucleus, then the cancer the proteins that gives signal for the cell proliferation, survival, and apoptosis are not expressed. Therefore, the aim of this study is to inhibit the phosphorylation of STAT3. We need to have an inhibitor that targets either JAK or STAT. But as from the previous slides, we got to know that atiprimode targets JAK protein. If we can target JAK proteins, then the STAT3 is not phosphorylated. So with this idea, we thought, and this is how we planned the project. Initially, this is the identification of the bioactive pharmacophore, then high throughput virtual screening, then chemical derivatization, determination of the cytotoxic potential, and analysis of this effect in vitro and in vivo models. As I explained you in this already, this is the bioactive pharmacophore that we identified using atiprimode as the scaffold. Later, we generated a library of compounds. So you can see that all of them have the structure of azathioprine. Azathioprine structure, on that we have developed a scaffold. Out of this, so after the synthesis of these things in the laboratory, we tested them towards a cell line called as HepG2. HepG2 is a liver cancer cell line. Against the HepG2, we tried these molecules. And you can see the table where we have expressed the IC50 value of all the compounds. IC50 means the concentration of the drug that is required to kill 50% of the cancer cells. Now, when the HepG2 cancer cells, that is liver cancer cells, were treated with different compounds, we got to know that there is a compound called as 5F. 5F showed a better activity. So it killed 50% of the cells at 7.3 micromolar concentration, which is a relatively good compound compared to the other candidates of the same series. So we thought to carry forward this molecule. Then if you think your drug can inhibit the proliferation of the cells, cancer cells, it is well and good. It is also important that the compound that you have selected should not kill the normal cells. So we decided to check on normal hepatocytes. These hepatocytes were cultured in the laboratory and tested with these compounds. And 5F or CMO, which was active against the hepatocellular carcinoma cells, was not active towards the normal LO2 cells. You can see here, not active. NA means not active. Therefore, it is a bonus to us because it is working well on the cancer cells, but not killing the normal cells. Then we decided to check with different cell types of different cancers, that is liver cancer, gastric cancer, breast cancer, prostate cancer, and head and neck cancers. You can see the name of the cell lines that we used here. And it gave out very good results in all the types of cancers we tested on. Interestingly, there it showed very good activity towards BT549. BT549 is a cell that belongs to triple negative breast cancer. Triple negative breast cancer means generally breast cancer treatment strategy, like in the present day condition, breast cancers are treated either against estrogen receptors, progesterone receptors, and HER2 receptors. If some cancer cells, some deadly type of breast cancer cells, do not express estrogen receptors, progesterone receptors, as well as HER2 receptors, if these three receptors are absent in the cancer cell, it is always very difficult to treat those breast cancer patients. So this kind of cancers are called as triple negative breast cancer because three types of receptors are absent. That's why it is called as triple negative breast cancer. So our drug is working well with triple negative breast cancer also. This is a very good discovery, in fact, because our drug is acting towards the broad range of cancer cells. Then, as I said, our initially hypothesis says that atiprimode is targets JAK2 STAT3 signaling. We should also make sure that our compound inhibits STAT3. So what we did is we went for the Western blotting analysis. You can see that the below image 5F, that is CMO, has completely wiped out the phosphorylation of STAT3 just in the span of just 6 hours. If there is a black intense band, that means there is phosphorylation, because there is no, it is almost, there is no band formation. That's why we understood that it is a specific inhibitor of JAK2 STAT3 signaling pathway. Then this is a very basic data, which is not enough to conclude our claims. So what we did is, next we tested in the different time points and different doses against different cancer cell lines. That is HepG2 is the liver cancer cell, AGS is the gastric cancer cell line, PSC, PR5 is the again hepatocellular carcinoma cells. So it showed a good activity with all the 3 cell lines. Then we did flow cytometric analysis. Flow cytometric analysis here, we detected the percentage of subG1 cells. subG1 cells means when the cancer cells are treated, if they die, they leave out their DNA and they appear in the form of subG1 cells. You can see that this histogram says that this is the subG1 population. That is 4.31%. That means in the absence of the drug, it showed 4.31% of the cell death. But with increase in the concentration of the drug at 24 hours and 48 hours, you can see that the subG1 population increased to 38% at 24 hours. 48 hours, 92% cells were dead. subG1 cells means they are already completely dead cells. So what we understood from this is, if the cancer cells are treated with our molecule CIMO for 48 hours, almost it kills almost all the cells. So it is a very good data to state that it is a very good cytotoxic agent which has the potential to develop into the drug. Then coming to the molecular events, we shifted back to the signaling mechanism. You can see here that we treated the liver cancer cells with different doses of azathioprine, that is CIMO, at 5 micromolar, 10 micromolar, 15 and 20. You can see that at 5 micromolar itself, there is no phosphorylation. That means it is the most effective, the STAT3 phosphorylation inhibitor. See, why I'm calling it as most effective is we compared the effect of this drug with the already available market in the commercially market available drug called as AG490. It is available in the market. When we treated the liver cancer cells with AG490, it also reduced the STAT3 phosphorylation. But you can see here that if you can compare whatever the amount of STAT3 phosphorylation inhibition took place at the 5 micromolar in case of our molecule, it is being showed at 100 micromolar. That means when compared to the standard drug, ours is more potent. And one more thing is STAT3 can be phosphorylated at 2 positions. One is at 727, serine 727. The other one is tyrosine 705. But here we got to know that if you can look at the blot, these 2 blots, phosphorylation at 727 was uninterrupted, whereas the phosphorylation at 705 is completely deteriorated. This means that so our drug is very effective and very specific. Specificity is more important here. Then we tested at different time points at till the 6 hours. JAK1, JAK2 phosphorylation and SRC phosphorylation were studied. In all the cases, this drug effectively inhibited the phosphorylation of the STAT3, JAK1 and SRC. So seeing is believing. You can see here that we used fluorescent imaging. As I explained you the basics of STAT3 biology, if STAT3 undergo phosphorylation, immediately it shifts into nucleus. Then we treated the cells, that is HepG2 cells, hepatocellular carcinoma cells, with the azathioprine and tried to locate where exactly the STAT3 is present. You can see this image where you can see the circular patterns. Circular pattern indicates that the fluorescence is present in the circular pattern. That means the nucleus has not been stained. If the nucleus is not stained, that indicates that STAT3 is present exclusively in the cytoplasm, not in the nucleus. So, but if you see in the control cell, the whole cell has been stained. This indicates that STAT3 is present both in case of the cytoplasm as well as in case of the nucleus. Therefore, this is also a clear evidence stating that CIMO inhibits the movement of STAT3 into the nucleus. So subsequently, we isolated the nucleus and isolated the STAT3 and tested its DNA binding ability. Since STAT3 being a transcription factor, it should bind to the DNA to express the genes. Fortunately, the DNA binding ability of the STAT3 was also drastically decreased in a time-dependent manner. This experiment was conducted at the 6 hours time point. Then PARP and caspase-3 are the proteins that get activated during the apoptosis program is initiated in cases of the cells. Upon treatment with CIMO, the PARP undergo cleavage, caspase-3 also underwent cleavage with subsequent activation of these proteins. And activation of these proteins indicate that this apoptosis program has been initiated. That's what we need at the end of the day. So to mimic the cellular, tumor microenvironment, in case of the cancer patients, generally these cancer cells produce a chemical called as interleukin-6. It is a cytokine called as interleukin-6. Interleukin-6 act on itself, induce the phosphorylation of STAT3, and thereby they continuously get the proliferative signals. What we did is we took the cell lines which do not have the constitutive expression of STAT3. We induced those cell lines with interleukin-6. You can see that at 0 hour, there is no protein formation, but after the interleukin induction, you can see there is a phosphorylation of the STAT3, which is reduced gradually upon the treatment with the azathioprine. The similar effect was observed both in case of phospho-JAK1 and phospho-JAK2. So this is also evidence stating that JAK and STAT3 work in coordination, and the inhibition of JAK and STAT3 leads to the cell death. So we profiled some of the apoptosis related proteins such as BCL2, cyclin D1, survivin, BAC, BCL2, BID, etc. These pro-apoptotic proteins were reduced and anti-apoptotic proteins were reduced, and pro-apoptotic proteins were increased. So soon after this, whatever the experiments that we did so far is all in case of the in vitro condition. But we wanted to know how exactly it behaves in case of the in vivo conditions. You can see that we used a nude mouse. In this, we used the orthotopic model where the liver cancer cells were injected and allowed to grow in a particular mice model. And those, the cells, injected cells are from the luciferase conjugated. Therefore, they begins to give out fluorescence. So wherever we have the fluorescence intensity, that means there is a tumor formation in the mouse. These are the controlled. The first line is the control, which is not given with any of the injections. In the next row, there is 2 mg treated CIMO and 10 mg treated. So these mice are injected with 2 mg of our compound, and these mice were injected with 30 mg of our compound for the period of 25 days. And we observed the tumor growth. In 2 mg also, there was a reduction of the tumor burden. In the 10 mg treated group, the tumor drastically reduced, and all the mice were healthy and they did not die till the end of the study. This indicates that our compound works well in the in vivo conditions also. So we can see that there is a significant decline in the tumor burden in all the animals. So this is all about the story of the azathioprine. So we encouraged by the Atiprimode, which is a patented drug. We investigated using the different softwares, and we got to know that azathioprine with the conjugation of the 2 6-membered rings work well, and we completed this project in this way. So we have been working with STAT3 biology from very long time. In the similar line, we got to know that there is a molecule called as synthetic molecule called as ACHP. This ACHP molecule also works as a good STAT3 inhibitor. You can see here there is a STAT3 inhibition here, and STAT3 signaling is diminished. As I explained you, seeing is believing. You can see that the phospho-STAT3 is localized only in the cytoplasm, not in the nucleus. You can see that the fluorescent images have been kept in the right panel of the system. So here we used lung cancer model. In the previous study, it was the liver cancer model. We got very similar results with lung cancer model also. Then moving on to the, I said we work in both the systems, that is under chemotherapy, either drugs derived from nature or derived from the synthetic origin. So far I discussed about only the synthetic drugs that are derived from the synthetic origin. In this slide, just to give you a hint, we worked on a drug called as bergamottin. Bergamottin is a natural compound that is exclusively present in the grapefruits. These grapefruits contains bergamottin, and generally doctors advise not to eat or drink grapefruit along with some medications, especially with statins. Bergamottin is a compound that is present in the grapefruit. When you consume grapefruit, it enters your bloodstream and goes to liver. In the blood, in the liver, it inhibits cytochrome P450, especially, particularly cytochrome P450. If the cytochrome P450 is inhibited, this is responsible for the excretion of the drugs that you have consumed. Bergamottin is inhibiting the cytochromes, which leads to the, if you have taken statin orally, statin is going to reside in the bloodstream for the longer time, which it should not take place, because the bioavailability is optimized by the companies and it is prescribed by the doctors in such a way that this should remains in the, in the circulation for only 4 hours or 6 hours or 8 or something like that. It should not reside for the longer time. That is going to have the negative impact on your organ system. This is called as the grapefruit effect. So this is my advice, that grapefruit should not be consumed along with some this kind of drugs, especially with statins. So the grapefruit contains the molecule called as bergamottin. We were interested to know whether bergamottin can inhibit the cell proliferation. So we found out that it killed the cancer cells very efficiently, and also it is a good inhibitor of the STAT3. Then apart from the STAT3 inhibition, we also tested again, we tested bergamottin along with the known drugs called as bortezomib and thalidomide. Bortezomib and thalidomide are the commercially available drugs used for the treatment of multiple myeloma patients. Now also they are prescribed as chemotherapeutic agents. Now you can see that there are red color dots. Red color dot indicates dead cells and green color dot indicates viable cells. So combination of bortezomib and as well as bergamottin, as well as thalidomide and bergamottin, increase the number of dead cells, projecting they can be given in synergy, or they have the additive effect. So in this line, we have been working in the discovery for drugs for tomorrow. See, whatever I explained to you so far, it is all about the laboratory conditions, or whatever we are doing it in our laboratories. They are still, these molecules needs to enter the clinical trials and further needs to be tested for their efficacy in the patient samples. So far we have generated more than 50 inhibitors for STAT3 signaling, and we hope that at some point of time the molecules that we have discovered may enter clinical trials and may come out as a drug candidates for the future. And some of these reports are published in journals such as International Journal of Oncology, Journal of Biological Chemistry, and as I explained you, the JAK-STAT inhibitor, that is azathioprine, is patented, and this is the copy of the Indian patent, since the previous one also patented by the Americans. So we patented this. It is not only Indian patents, we have covered United States patents as well. So it is a PCT. It comes under PCT. And some of the recent papers published from our laboratory are given here. That is from the iScience Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences, USA. So this molecule is a specific inhibitor of bad protein, and it works with against 30 different cancers, which is a breakthrough from our laboratory again. This molecule is commercialized. You can see that Medchem Express, this is an American company they are selling our molecule as a standard BAD inhibitor. This is commercially available. You can just, if you click Medchem Express NPB, you will get to know. That's also one of the nice story, which I can speak in some other conferences once again. So lastly, but not least, acknowledgements goes to University of Mysore, for providing me this platform where I can carry out my research work. I always work with Professor Rangappa sir. He was the former vice chancellor, and he is the guiding force to our research. And Dr. Basappa is a collaborator, and he is behind the chemical synthesis and all. And Gautam Sethi, who is our long-term collaborator, he helps us with the biology and with the things which we don't have. And I also thank my colleagues, students, collaborators, and Department of Science and Technology, especially for funding this work. Thank you.
Thank you, Doctor. Doctor, can we go to Q&A session right now?
Yeah, yes, please. I'm happy to answer if there are any questions.
Okay, one Mr. Karthik have raised hands. I would request the participants to, put their questions either in Q&A box and chat box. Dr. Ms. Bhumika have asked, any newer molecule identified on the research of COVID, herd immunoglobulins are on the way against FAB particle?
Yes, actually, COVID is the hot topic now. Everyone wants to go behind COVID and identify, a better molecule. Of course, we also tried with chemical molecules, and it is underway. We have developed a RDRP inhibitor, that is reverse transcriptase inhibitors, and it is on the way. I don't know how far we will be successful, but it has shown good activities so far. And related to antibody basis, yes, of course, it is a good approach. I feel that development of the antibodies against particular proteins, it is always a good approach. But the only concern is it should be economical. As soon as you speak about immunoglobulins, it is always uneconomical. So I hope the company or any person who is trying to develop antibody against them should make it available for the public in a cheaper rates.
Thank you, Doctor. And Professor Andulu have asked, what is grapefruit? It's looking like orange. Like, maybe can you just brief her?
Yeah, it is, it is the hybrid form of orange, I can say. Orange also contains the small amount of bergamotin. So you should be cautious when you're eating orange also. This is also citrus fruit. Grapefruit is also a citrus fruit. You should not get confused with grapes. Grapes and grapefruit is different. It looks very similar to orange. How to say? I think, grapefruit is very similar to orange. Orange also has a small amount of bergamotin, but grapefruit has the highest amount of bergamotin. So you should be cautious about while eating grapefruit. It belongs to orange family itself.
Okay, Doctor. Thank you. Next question from Karthik Kumara. A nice presentation, sir. If I have any organic molecule, how one can check whether it has any biological significance without going to biological experiment? Is it possible?
Yes, very good question. Yes, you can really test it. There is software. There are several softwares we call it as like, if you can refer to our papers, you can find out, especially that PNS paper which I showed you. There we had a compound that we did not know whether this compound is active or not. We have a collaborators from University of Cambridge, particularly Professor Andreas Bender. He is from Department of Biochemistry. We asked him whether, can you check without testing in the laboratory condition, can you tell us if it kills the cancer cells or not? He has a software which is a classifier. In fact, if you can provide the structure of the organic compound, that software determines where exactly it binds in the biological system, which is the protein target in the biological system. Therefore, if you can provide the structure of the organic molecule to the structure, that software, it will give you a particular information which protein it binds to, and you can if you can get to know which protein it interacts with, you can back verify that which protein, where exactly that particular protein is overactivated. So in which model, either it is in the cancer model or in the Parkinson model or neurological diseases, XYZ, you can back verify in this way. Using the computational softwares, you can always do that.
Thank you, Doctor. Next question. I'm not sure who I'm not an expert on cancer. The natural products work in the natural environment and isolating the active molecule and using it as a drug may be the reason for all the side effects of modern pharma. What is your take on it?
See, when it is, though it is an organic molecule, I mean, the synthetic molecule or the natural compounds, they have their own effects. Let me tell you very in a simple words. Bergamottin, you never thought that it is going to have the, adverse effects. Why we can generally consider natural products are safe as, because they are present in a very small quantity in case of the natural sources. But when it comes to in the form of the drugs, you are concentrating and giving it in the form of the tablets. If you are taking 100 mg of tablet of bergamottin, you need to eat a lot amount of grapefruits just to have 100 mg of bergamottin. So the same way, this is why the natural compounds are generally considered safe, because you are eating along with your food and not really they are going to harm you. But if they are taken in excess, obviously they also have their side effects. Another example that I can give you is Taxol, paclitaxel. Paclitaxel is the drug that is obtained from Taxol tree. That is yew tree. Simply we call it as yew tree. Taxus baccata. The scientific name is Taxus baccata. To get 2 grams of Taxol, we need to cut 6 trees of 100 years old. So you can imagine how much Taxol do you get it in the, in a natural source. But Taxol, if it is injected in higher amount, it is highly toxic and it has deleterious side effects. So how do you say that whether the natural compounds are safe or the synthetic compounds are safe? No, we can never, have we should not be under the impression that only these are safe and the others are not safe. If they are taken in excess, always all the compounds are unsafe.
Okay, Doctor. Next question from Dr. Kaustavkar. In vivo tumor graph, if we given more than 30 mg to the mice, what will be the result?
If you inject 30 mg, see, in every study, we plan in such a way that depending on the efficacy of the drug, we decide how much mg to be administered to the, the particular animal. I showed you the results of the mouse which is bearing the liver cancer. But before doing that, we go for acute toxicity studies. Acute toxicity studies means we make a mouse into different groups: 5 mg group, 10 mg group, 25 mg group, 50 mg group, 100 mg group, 200 mg group, something like this. So they are completely normal mouse. They are not cancerous. So we inject our drug to those mouse and verify whether is there any death. if there are death reported in 25 mg mouse, we don't go for that dose. We restrict the dose to either to 10 mg or 15 mg, because our intention is not to kill the animal. We want to know the dose, where exactly, which is sufficient enough to have beneficial effect towards the animal, not to have any harmful effect to that. Therefore, our compound should not be lethal. So we will make a plan before testing all these things. We will have we'll perform acute toxicity studies and make a note of this. So to this particular question, we have tested till 100 mg per kg body weight. So no deaths were reported. Since the molecule was very effective, we thought to try only at 10 mg and 20 mg per kg body weight. It is not that if we inject 30 mg per kg body weight, it will die. It's not that case. We have tested up to 100 mg per kg body weight and no animal death were reported. So no issues with this.
Thank you, doctor. Next question. What is the role of nutraceuticals in cancer treatment?
Nutraceuticals, yes, of course, that is one of the interesting field nowadays which is coming up. I assume that nutraceuticals also has a good role, but nutraceuticals, I say rather it is preventive rather than the curative, because if you have a good nutritional things, you can keep yourself healthy. Because I said we get exposed to mutagens in a routinely, but to overcome this, you need to have a very good antioxidant system. For antioxidant system, you need to depend on the greens or some food products that provides you good amount of free radicals. So nutraceuticals come somewhere there. So I think that's also a nice approach.
Thank you, doctor. Next question. Sir, do you screen your potent drug fire for possible side effects?
Soumya, please come again because your voice was breaking.
Yeah, sir, did you screen your potent drug 5F for possible side effects?
Of course, without that one, university will not permit us to proceed with in vivo model unless we have acute toxicity studies, the data of the acute toxicity studies. If we have proceeded to the in vivo model, it is understood that we have performed acute toxicity studies. We have taken the normal mouse, injected this one. It is like, I showed you in the initial stages itself. Our drug is killing the cancer cells, but it was not killing the normal cells. So we always need to show to the scientific community that our drug is safe. If it kills the normal cells equally, it is not proceeded further at all.
Okay. So next question. What is the difference between NT and ACHP?
I'm sorry?
What is the difference between NT and ACHP?
ACHP and SIMO, you mean to say?
No, NT.
Actually, in NP. So I'm not sure about your question.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Can I go to the next question? Yeah. Can I go to the next question, please?
No, you can ask me any question. Actually, that voice was breaking and I did not get what exactly you asked me for.
Okay, no problem. I'll go to the next question. Sir, can you shed light on docking duties if possible?
Come again, please.
Can you shed light on docking duty studies if possible?
Docking, yes, of course. you know, for the publication purpose, we do that always. See, I am trying to claim that ours is the JAK2 inhibitor, JAK2 STAT3 signaling inhibition takes place. How sure are we? So that can be, it is like, we have a good, I mean, we in the sense the scientists have developed, you know, good crystal models. I mean, protein crystallography is going good, and computational analysis is also going good. So generally we can do docking also. In most of the papers, we can see the docking studies also. But we recommend, if you are doing docking, I don't recommend you to go with some software that are freely available in the internet. Either it should be Schrodinger or some Accelerate Discovery Studios, something like this. If you can, you know, afford to have such kind of softwares, they will give the accurate results. Otherwise, many freely available softwares are not up to the mark. This is the experience. This is my experience. Therefore, docking, definitely it helps. Definitely it is a good platform, but provided if you are using the paid version of the good softwares such as Schrodinger and Discovery Studios.
Thank you, doctor. I'm going to the next question. What is the bioavailability level of bergamottin after direct consumption?
Bergamottin, we did not check about the bioavailabilities because it was not taken to the in vivo models. It was just showed in the in vitro studies. Bergamottin, we are yet to do in vivo studies. We have not yet gone to there.
Okay, doctor. Going to the next question. Effect of CIMO on the proliferation of cancer during more than 72 hours. What will be the changes on graph HEP-G2, AGS, and PLC?
Generally, if it is 72 hours itself is a very huge amount. See, rather than looking at the graph, I suggest to look at the facts analysis, where the 48 hours, when the HEP-G2 cells were treated with 48 hours, 92% cells were in the subsequent phase, which means that almost 92% cells were dead. This is not different either in case of the PLC-PR5 or A5419 or AGS, any other cells. So most of the cells were dead.
Okay, doctor. Going to the next question. Does 5F decrease the estrogen level causing breast cancer? There will be increased level of estrogen.
No, actually, we did not, test it in the breast cancer model. It is either in case of the, hepatocellular carcinoma, we used breast cancer cells which are triple negative as well as triple positive. It worked well both in case of the triple negative breast cancer cells and as well as triple positive breast cancer cells. It is not about the secretion of the estrogen, because we have not tested it in the in vivo models. If you want to know whether it increases the estrogen levels or not, again, we need to go for the breast cancer model to evaluate that.
Okay, doctor. I'm going to the next question from Bhumika. Do we have Pacific yew tree in Western Ghats, and is it prescribed from Shimoga and some places of Kerala, and is it advisable? Have any drug from them studied? Any idea?
Yew tree is available throughout the globe. The first thing is Pacific yew tree is generally used as the source of the paclitaxel. That is the that was identified in 1965. I don't know like whether you know about the story of the yew tree or not. It is the National Cancer Institute of America funded some group of researchers to search for the drugs from nature, and they went on searching. They found a tree called as yew tree. They took the bark of the yew tree, and when they brought it back to the laboratory, they prepared they prepared the solvent out of it. They dissolved it in a proper solvent and prepared a out of it. They tested against the cancer cell lines. accidentally they found out that all the cancer cells were dead when they treated with yew tree, and they were amazed. Then they started working on the yew tree. They crushed the bark, they prepared the dry extract, then went for the LCMS, NMR, and all those things. Later, they got to know that there is a compound called as Taxol in the bark of the yew tree. Then the company started developing it. It became a blockbuster drug. Currently also, it has the market size of $3 billion, $3 billion US per year. It has the market size. Such a huge blockbuster drug it is. But one thing is, once it was discovered to, once the yew tree was discovered to have the anti-cancer effects, people started cutting it enormously. It went to deforestation. And another amazing thing about it one is, if you want to treat a cancer patient, you need to cut 6 yew trees of 100 years old. This is one of the most fascinating things. So how many yew trees needs to be cut to treat so many cancer patients throughout the globe? So in 1993, Strobel and other colleagues went to the yew tree. They took the bark and found out that there is a fungus growing with the tree. We call it as an endophyte. That fungus, when they brought it and they grown it in the laboratory, very fortunately, the fungus was believed, we got to know that the fungus is producing Taxol. See, to grow fungus, you just need 10 days. To grow yew tree, you require 100 years. I mean, you need the 100-year trees to produce the drugs from it. So it is one of the breakthrough. This is how the fungus is widely used. The fungus obtained from the yew tree has been widely used for the production of Taxol currently. Otherwise, yew trees wouldn't have been existed by now. If they start cutting in 1964, by now, you wouldn't have found one yew tree also across the globe. Now, because of the fungus, the yew trees are survived. And if the question is from a researcher who is working on the yew tree, I again suggest you to go to yew tree and take its parts, different parts, and take out the endophytic fungi associated with that particular tree, either in Shimoga or you go to any place. If the work is not been done in that particular region, you can obviously go for the isolation of the Taxol from that particular yew tree.
Thank you, doctor. I'm going to the next question. Dr. Kaustubh have asked, effect of ACHP on state 3 signaling in lung cancer cells in 168 hours. That means in a week time period, what will be the changes seen on graph?
See, I'm not very sure about why you are specifying 168 hours. See, I generally know, what is the procedure that we have followed in our laboratory from very long time is, we never go beyond 72 hours. Because the exposure time, if you increase more than 72 hours, it is too much. Because if the drug is injected for such a long time in the in vivo condition, the organism cannot tolerate. Therefore, it is generally not advised to have more than 72 hours. Sometimes we feel that 72 hours itself is too much. And I suggest the researcher not to exceed that time point, because the cells would be dead. Not only bergamottin, any of the drugs that you are working with, to know the cytotoxicity, if it is cytotoxic below 72 hours and 50 micromolar at 50 micromolar concentration, that's good enough. Above 50 micromolar concentration, the drugs are not recommended, because that much amount of drug cannot be injected to a 70 kg person. If you are using 70 micromolar, you just back calculate and find out how much you need to inject for the 70 kg person. That amount of drug cannot be tolerated by human body. So it is not advisable to go for the higher time points and higher doses as well.
Thank you, doctor. I think I have taken all the questions. Okay, one more question is there. Sorry. Okay, from Sudarshanan. Sir, what happens in blood cancer, and are you working on it also? Is there any drug or treatment for blood cancer? What is meant by DOCING, dosing?
BU?
DOCING.
See, I am not working on blood cancer. The first thing is, and the question is, you cannot really say blood cancer. Blood cancer, again, it has subdivision into more than 50 types of cancers are there under blood cancer. See, we generally call it as acute myeloid leukemia or chronic myeloid leukemia, or it is multiple myeloma. See, all these things are blood cancers. So which blood cancer, which type of cancer that you are referring to? The first question that arises is, though I was interested initially in the working with multiple myeloma, there are certain problems associated with this in, to work in our laboratory conditions. We prefer to have adherent cells. Adherent cells means the hepatocellular carcinoma cells adheres to the bottom of the flask. So it is easy to observe. It is easy to maintain them without contamination. Even though these blood cancer cells are contaminated, it is difficult to look for. Therefore, because of various reasons, we have not been working with this kind of cancers. Very rarely, 1 or 2 reports. In the initial days, we tried using blood cancer, but we have completely shifted to hepatocellular carcinoma, that is liver cancer and breast cancer nowadays. So dosing is the dose that you give to the organism or to the cell lines. So we call that as dose.
Thank you, doctor. I'm going to the next question from Ms. Professor Randalu. We isolated a molecule which showed inhibition in leukemia cell line in SRB assay. How can we proceed with testing its mode of action?
See, as I explained earlier, if you see in the first project that I showed you, we identified atiprimode as the template. Atiprimode, see, it is already reported. So we modified the structure in such a way that there are, before it was 6-membered, 5-membered fusion, and we made it into 6-membered, 6-membered fusion. Therefore, we know the target. There are various ways to know the target of a particular compound. The first thing is, as I explained you for the first or second question, we can always go for the software-based analysis, where if you give the structure to the software, including Schrödinger has this, if you provide the structure to the software, this will predict the target of the that particular compound. And importantly, this is internationally accepted by all the journals. It is not that they are claiming and it is not accepted. So if Schrödinger is, it is detecting, or it is giving out a results in such a way that a particular, it interacts with a particular protein, that is accepted, because we have published a paper in PNAS on the same grounds. So I suggest you to use in silico analysis for the prediction of the target of the compound of interest.
Thank you, doctor. And next question, effect of CMO on inducible state 3 activator and apoptosis. What will be the changes seen in phospho-JAK1 and BIT? Kindly explain.
I showed you the image. If you want, I can just again share the screen. So this is the indivisible expression you can see in this picture. Yes, here we have induced these cells which do not have the constitutive activation of the STAT3. You can see that there is no activation of the STAT3. We have induced these cells with interleukin 6. You can see that after the induction, there is a phosphorylation. So as with the increase in the time point, you can see that there is a decrease in the phosphorylation of the STAT3, which means that even on the induction grounds, our molecule is potent enough. So it is targeting the STAT3. At the same time, as the person has asked, you can see that JAK1 and JAK2 here, phosphorylation of JAK1, you can see after the induction, which has gone down with the increase in the time point with the incubation in SIMO. The same effect was observed in JAK2 also. This answers your question. So it is either inducible system or the constitutive activation. Our molecule has the same effect on it.
Thank you, doctor. I'm going to the next question. Have you worked on glioma cell lines? Have you developed drug against it?
No, glioma cells we have never worked with.
Next question, doctor. Is there any problem facing two country patent on same drug, India against US?
Patenting is always, a wonderful phenomenon, I can say. Generally, if you patent a drug that is for an activity, the patent has the life of 20 years. So nobody can use it for 20 years. See, this comes under IPR, where I have patented. If I have taken the Indian patent, that means nobody in India should work on this. It doesn't restrict the scientists to work for to carry out the same work in either in US or Germany or European countries, somewhere else. So always it is good to have patents referred as PCT. PCT means Patent Cooperation Treaty. So all the countries have signed this treaty, and it is of the understanding that if you have taken PCT as the patent of your choice, you have an invention, you have taken PCT, throughout the globe, nobody will work on this. That rights stays only with you. If you take Indian patent, in India, nobody can work with it. But outside India, as soon as you step out of India, anybody can work on it. So generally, it is not recommended to have the patent that is restricted to the particular territory. So you need to have patent which has the broader umbrella. So generally, this is how the patents are restricted. So most of I have 5 patents for the discovery of these drugs. 2 are Indian patents and 3 are PCT.
Thank you, doctor. Let me just see if any questions I have left. Okay. I think I have taken all the questions, doctor, and thank you for answering all the questions in patience. And I hope the session was really informative for everyone. So one moment, I'll just request my colleagues also to join and for a vote of thanks. One moment. So on behalf of MedPiper and Jonomed, we would like to thank you, Dr. Mohan, for spending your Friday evening with us discussing the latest advancement in cancer, drugs and developments. We'll be looking forward to associate with you for more webinars like this, scientific sessions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Soumya, Parvati, Saumi, and all the associated members of your group for providing me this platform to interact with some of the young researchers as well as some senior people. And it was happy here working with you guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
So I can leave,
Thank
right?
you, sir.
Thank you, doctor.
I can leave the session, right?
Yeah, yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, sir.